So good morning, everyone, and welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where I move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. And today I'm here with Reverend Pastor Kevin Taylor, author of A Charge to Keep, a book that talks about, we just talked briefly about how you don't have to check your business acumen at the church door, and you don't have to check your faith at the corporate door. And that's really incredible because I think there is so much to connect there, and I've always had an opinion on that. But really, I want to hear all about you, and then I'll share my opinion because I do have a strong opinion. I think the church could serve a bigger role in all our lives, not just spiritually, but as far as teaching our young people how to live successfully and all sorts of things like that. And so, but I don't want to. I want Kevin to take over. I want Pastor Kevin Taylor to take over. Kevin.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Coach, for having me, and hello to all of your listening audience. So as you indicated, I am both a pastor and a C-level leader working these days and helping leaders to carry the weight that has been entrusted to them. And so I'm doing coaching and advisory work through my LLC, Tailored Stewardship Institute. And so in that, I'm also the pastor of the oldest Black church in upstate New York, Israel AME Church in Albany, and I am delighted again to be a part of your group of podcast guests. In terms of what the book focuses on, it is subtitled Immutable Leadership Lessons from the C-Suite to the Pulpit. And in it, I share 12 hard-earned lessons from my pastoral and C-level leadership. And it is supported in each chapter by an example from both parts of my life. And while I know that there is a push, we would separate church and state, and that we would separate our business life from our faith life, and vice versa, I do believe that who we are is not just one part of our identity in one place and another part in another place, but we bring the best of what we have to each arena that we're in. And so I believe that I'm a stronger C-level leader because I have a faith that teaches me how to interact with people and how to love people despite the way they treat me. And I think that I'm a stronger faith leader because on my jobs, I have gone through professional development where, we start on time, we end on time, that there is an agenda, that there is a call to action, that there is a survey, and that those same principles have enabled me to be a stronger pastor as I lead congregation in Bible study and workshops, and of course on Sunday. And so I'm here to say that when we say bring our full selves to work, your full self is not just your background in business or your background at church. Your full self is all of the identities that you wear.
And that's really beautiful that you said that because I do not believe in a separation of church and state. The legality of it is there, but the reality of it is not. You bring your faith to work. I go to work, I try to say I honor God in everything I do. I try. I don't know that I always do, but it is very much a part of my life to try and do the right thing. I don't always do the right thing, but there is no separation. It's not like I just do the right thing. And I generally don't go to church. I generally pray on my own time. And so then comes the idea of church being a more vital part of our life. So one thing I've talked to a gentleman by the name of Jackson Lamer, he was at the Donald Trump's Oval Office when he signed into action a faith-based office in the White House, the first faith-based office in the White House. And it had a specific purpose for it that they felt like certain administrations were targeting Christianity and Christian leaders through the IRS and via other engines. But the point was that when I brought up the notion that church should get more involved in teaching our children how to work, how to live successfully, how to financially plan, how to buy a home. This is a great place where a pastor like yourself, who also has this incredible amount of business experience, can offer all that to the children in your community. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to show up with their parents on Sunday. It could very well mean that if you had the time to open your doors on a Wednesday afternoon after school and children come to your church to learn from your experience, you would have an incredible wealth of knowledge to offer. Have you ever considered doing that?
Yeah, and so we have, and it's taken on different forms at the different churches that I've served. So we've done Vacation Bible School, where, a traditional Vacation Bible School would be from 9 to 12. And then we followed that in the afternoon by a Mathematics Institute, where one of my members of my extended family has come and done a workshop for that same week in the afternoon for kids to be able to get stronger in their math skills. And so it was math exploration, and it was a fun-filled day. So the kids were at church for all day, but it was a new way of learning math. But I've also done, in part of my career, I used to work for Scholastic, the children's book publisher, and was able to get books at a discounted rate. And so we've done everything from a book challenge, where we've given children the books for the summer and challenged them to read, and to a summer financial literacy challenge. So last year, the church that I pastor in Albany, we gave children $500 of fictional money to buy stocks. And so every child sent me a list of the stocks that they wanted to invest in. And from the start of July to the end of August, the child whose stock portfolio rose by the most amount of money received $500 to be able to invest in the stock market. And that was the challenge that everyone accepted. But then I was able to work out an arrangement with a company called giveashare.com, where we were able to then ensure that every participant, not just the ones that did the best, but every participant got a share of Ford stock. So everyone walked away with a share of Ford stock, and the two winners got a $500 money order that they could then invest in the stocks of their own. And so you might be saying, well, why does that matter? Well, it does two things. One, gives students something to do over the summer. And in communities of color, we can tie the achievement gap to summer learning loss, so the time that children are away from school. And then secondly, it provides children early on with an appreciation of what and why stocks matter. So I can remember when I first announced it in church, I had kids coming to me saying, well, why do I need to know what the stock market is? And why do I need to care about my retirement? And there's not an adult that I know that doesn't wish that they started investing earlier, or that they maxed out their 401ks at the time that they first had them versus later in life when it became more expensive to do so. And so if we can expose children to financial principles sooner rather than later, then we create an opportunity for children to know better and to do better later in life. And isn't that what we want to do? But like, that's my pastoral vision for what a church is to do, informed by my business acumen about what and how people grow and grow their wealth. And so those are, that to me is an example of how those two parts of my life intersect. But I would be derelict in my duty as a pastor if I did not create opportunities for our children to learn. And I would be derelict in my responsibility as a leader if I did not ensure that we are working to make sure that there are children in churches and in the community that are not just ready for jobs, but to one day be job creators themselves.
And that's just incredible, because that's everything I've been trying to say for years of podcasting. So I started in politics, and I'm just telling the story briefly. I coined the phrase, I don't raise money, I raise awareness. And the minute I would say that in any room full of potential voters or donors, they just thought I was an idiot. So, politics is all about money, but podcasting is all about raising awareness. So I found my way. But that what you just said, every child should know more. As a young person, I had a small cleaning business. I was stripping and waxing a floor
Mm.
of General Rental, and the gentleman paid me $500 cash that Sunday. He
Well,
said, "You should invest this in Home Depot stock." And I had no idea even how to buy Home Depot stock. So, I'm not going to tell this man who's basically a new customer, I don't know what you're talking about. But imagine if I had Pastor Kevin Taylor, if I had been to his class
mm,
and seminar, because it's still faith based. There's
mm,
no reason to believe talking finances is not faith based.
mm,
Success is a part of faith. It's a part of life. You want to achieve, you want to be able to provide your family. That's honoring God in what you do.
mhm. Absolutely.
So, and so, but I didn't have that knowledge. And I've always argued that point. And I even go one step further, because what was so ironic about that particular story is Home Depot, 3 miles from his store, ultimately got in the equipment rental business
Mm,
and pummeled him. I just basically was in a year, he was out of business. Everybody just gravitated. They're in Home Depot. I said, wow, they're in the rental business. So big business is consuming a lot of what small business used to do very well, a lot of what small business owners used to do very well. That's okay if you're able to join them because you're not going to beat them, and joining them by meaning investing in them. And I love what you're saying, what you're doing, and how you've done it. And when I read this interview, I said, this could really be a connection of something I've been trying to talk about for years. And
Right, so I really appreciate that, and I'm sorry that that person's business went out of business as a result of going against Home Depot. But you're absolutely right. Like, what is the benefit of us driving the cars that we drive, or going to the stores that we go to, and aren't appreciating fully that those are businesses? And so it's one thing to support them with your dollar. It's another thing to benefit from the dividends that they pay to their stockholders, right? So you can want to play basketball, or you can want to be the owner. Because if the basketball player is getting this much money, how much must the owner get? But like, these are the things that people have to put into perspective. But you might ask, well, Kevin, where did this idea come to you from?
I
And so it comes from, like, actually having grown up in a church where I was seeing people who were college professors. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so home of the University of Michigan, college professors, school board members, teachers, principals, like all in all this whole professional Black community in my church. But like, I first learned about the FAFSA form as a part of Men's Day when I was in the 10th grade, because the finance director for the University of Michigan Dearborn was a member of my congregation. And so we did FAFSA workshops as a part of our work. Well, now as a pastor, I'm saying we can do Paying for College 101, where after church, we bring the kids together, and instead of using, actual grants or actual scholarships, we're using candy to represent the different forms of financial aid. And so, like, your task is to be able to fill this $100,000 gap to be able to get you to college. And you can do it with loans, you can do it with with grants or scholarships, but you just got to get there, and then your family contribution. And so, yeah, the bigger candy bars are the loans, right? Because they're easier to get you to your total. But loans have to be paid back regardless of whether you get your degree. And so you might be looking at the Jolly Ranchers and saying, ooh, I don't want to have to get, 50 Jolly Ranchers in order to make my $100,000. But you never know. One of those Jolly Ranchers might be a full ride. And you don't know that unless you're willing to apply. Now, it's candy and kids love candy, but you're teaching the children something significant about the idea that you can learn these things in an environment with people that you know. And so I had one family, we did this last fall. I had one family that said, like, no one's ever taken the time to explain this to us. Like, because I played the financial aid officer, and, you're coming to me as the person to be able to say, and so what are you guys going to do? What is your plan? Well, no one took the time to say that. Now, that puts that child at a advantage in their coursework, because they now know what they need to be able to do. So you don't have to start looking for scholarships when you were a senior in high school. As I say in that presentation, that every year billions of dollars with a B goes unclaimed because children choose not to apply. And so why are we not focused on making sure that students are ready? Because that college debt stays with you. And so if we can help students to graduate high school with or graduate college without that debt, then we've created an opportunity for them to be able to experience more of the American dream. And so as a faith leader, it is my duty to make sure that is just as much a part of the message as is how you live right and how you follow God's commands, because it is important that we are good stewards over what God has given us.
And I know what you say about you. Obviously, you're the pastor, you're the businessman. I'm not, but you've just said everything I've been trying to say for years, and I'm just excited to hear it because it's incredible. But as the pastor, right? Is there some line we need to draw between there's separation of church and state? Is there a reason to believe it's a must?
Well, and so I think the answer is yes, because as organizations, we say bring your whole self to work, right? So you've got children. No one's asking you to necessarily to bombard them with stories or pictures, all the time. But it's okay for you to know that you are a parent and that there is something outside of the workplace that actually motivates you. I don't come to a job trying to save people's souls, but I'm going to be unafraid of being able to say that I got to go because I got to get to church, or much of my time off is spent attending these church meetings. And so that's just a part of who I am. Your thing might be the vacation. My thing is that I got to use my vacation time to be able to attend church things. And that's okay. But like, if I don't know as a leader, if I don't know that you are preparing for a marathon, how can I ever be a part of helping you to achieve your goal? Because maybe you need Marathon Monday off, and maybe you need to be able to prepare. And we should be thinking differently about the meals that we serve for the staff lunches, because you are on a diet, or you are needing to eat certain things, and so you're not choosing to stay at the lunch counter much longer because you got to know that you got something else to do. But if I don't know that you're preparing for a marathon, I can't be there to be supportive of what you're doing. And so it's important. But that's a faith technique of understanding that the people that are sitting in the pew are carrying more than just what they're wearing to church on Sunday. But I need to know that about my employees too, because if them being happy and being present for the work also means understanding that they've got more to do than just the work that I've assigned them. But like, that's something that leaders would be well suited to think through, but that's informed by my faith. And yes, I'm a Christian pastor, but like, it doesn't matter if you're Jewish, or you choose to subscribe to Islam or to Hinduism or any of the other major religions of the world. The point is that there is something bigger than you that you answer to. And that, to me, is worth celebrating.
Absolutely. And we don't single out faith, right? So when the kids
Nope.
just say, the kids don't necessarily come to Pastor Taylor's Sunday church, but they can come to your
Yeah, absolutely.
midweek
Shots. Yep.
courses.
Yep.
And something I always tell my wife, we have kids. I'm actually older, but my kids are younger. See, we always feel like they're not listening, but somehow ultimately I realize they're not, they don't, so we feel like they don't listen. But ultimately down the road, I noticed they were listening. They were actually doing what I had mentioned 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, they looked at me like I was an idiot. They walked away mad. But then I noticed, and that's something we're instilling in these children. This child, like you said, we're just using face, just naming face. A Jewish child comes to your church on a Wednesday, not necessarily Sunday morning for church service, but on a Wednesday, and he picks up on this. Maybe he's more inclined to understand that all faiths are equal, all faiths are the same. Really, it's your faith, and Hinduism is your faith, and they're all beautiful, and they all
Mhm.
serve a lot of good. They'll teach you a lot of good. And so, go ahead.
Well, absolutely. And so I think that's the distinguishing marker, though, right? Is that like, education is universal. And so so we don't have to agree on everything, but like, there's enough that we do agree on, like math is math. And what examples I use to be able to teach the math matters not as much as the fact that it's math. And so the question we have to begin to ask ourselves is whether or not we're going to teach these universal principles in order for people to be able to also understand that the barriers that we believe make us different, are they really? And so you voted for a different president than I did. No, okay, but like, that doesn't mean that we don't have some of the same experiences, shop at the same grocery stores, have the same menu items, both love pizza, right? Whatever the case is, we have more in common than we don't. And so if we can get to a place where we might not see eye to eye on every issue, but we see eye to eye on this, then we can learn that we can get along. And that's what a lot of churches and a lot of faith-based institutions are, in communities where the parishioners are commuters, meaning they are no longer walking to those places because the communities around the churches have changed. But guess what? It doesn't matter that you might be a black church in a Spanish-speaking area. You can invite those same people to be able to come to your worship service, and can choose to let them use the space in the afternoon, and that's another source of income for you. But like, those children love to play too. Those children need to learn to read also. Like, those kids need help with math also. And so like, we can break down the barriers that separate us, because whether you are a Republican or Democrat, you still have to pass math. And you still have to learn how to write a paper. And like, AI is still something that you need to master. And so like, those are universal truths that we don't have to get into the politics of, but
No,
we might just see that we can actually get along.
absolutely. And let's even go one step wider, one step way deeper. How about Pastor Taylor teaching executives and businessmen how to be better executives, just like you said, how to be better listen to their employees, listen to their hopes and dreams. Oh, you're running a marathon this week. Oh, you need accommodations. I can make those accommodations. I'm a restaurant manager. I can make all sorts of accommodations. I don't have to be so close-minded. This is your schedule. You call out, you're going to get a write-up, 2 write-ups, you're fired. I can give you the day off. Believe me, even if we're shorthanded, I'll have plenty to do and my night will fly by. But how do we teach even bosses, not necessarily bosses, but executives, leaders, how do we do that?
And so I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I started the Taylor Stewardship Initiative, that institute, that we can have those conversations. And so I am coaching executive leaders on exactly what you're talking about right now. And it is to be able to say that's an okay conversation, because if you, as a restaurant manager, gave that person the day off, not only have you helped them reach their dream or their goal, but they are not going to forget that about you. And so they might be looking to go someplace else, and they might just choose to say that I actually want to stay with him because he cared enough about me that he was able to accommodate my schedule to enable me to be able to do the thing that was so important to me. And maybe you decide, look, maybe you decide that you are going to sponsor that team, a team of runners, or you're going to host an event where you're going to celebrate all of the runners, so they all get a discount, and you've just increased the value of your business simply by being kind. And so the reality is that, like, everybody is chasing, it's chasing the dollar and chasing the customer. But you know, as a business person, that it takes a lifetime to build a customer, but only a moment to lose one. And so why not create the type of environment where you are building a customer base, where you are building people's lives? Because at the end of the day, again, we have more in common than we have apart. But so yes, I'm available. I'm available to help leaders to understand these decisions, and I'm available to help leaders to know what to be able to do. But then the other part of it is that leadership is also very lonely. And so, as a restaurant manager, you know that you work with very small margins. And so, every little choice that you make makes a difference about whether or not you are going to be able to meet payroll and to be able to stay in business for another month, another year. Those are heavy decisions that leaders wear. And yes, the phrase, heavy is the crown that the leader wears. Okay. But like, leadership is lonely when you are making those types of choices in the middle of the night and you are waking up with heartburn and indigestion, thinking about whether or not you're going to be able to make payroll. And so what do you do? How do you think about those things? Who do you talk to in those moments? I'm also available to be able to help people to steward those types of decisions, because that is where leadership is either won or lost, on those types of choices. And not everybody is going to understand why that item had to come off the menu. Not everybody's going to understand why you couldn't expand into the other city or needed to close one of the booths or restaurants or whatever the case may be. People don't understand, but it is your duty as the leader to be sure that you are clear on why you're making those choices and that you would make them in a timely manner. And that is also something that I work with leaders on.
And that's just incredible. And just to point out, the dividend on having that sense of understanding is pretty enormous. The return on investment is pretty enormous. I work with the chain I work for, built a community-based 24 restaurants. And the reason they did so was because they catered to the kids in the community, and the kids followed suit and came to those restaurants and brought their teams and encouraged us to sponsor their teams and stuff. And ultimately, there was that growth. That's the one thing you need to be in a restaurant, any business. It's not enough to be liked. It's not enough to be loved. You have to be craved. You have to be revered. You have to be respected. You have to do it right and better than anybody. And better than anybody also means treating your employees in a sense, but just like you said, there is a bottom line. So it doesn't mean just be willy-nilly with pay raises, but it means knowing your employees and knowing what they're trying to accomplish, or knowing they're a single mom and they have a crazy boyfriend or husband that they need to run home to and stop a situation and saying, go, honey, go, man, go and take care of your family. If you can come back tonight, not, or see you tomorrow. But having all that empathy and having that leadership skills that you're talking about is just something we need to convey that message more and more to make a kinder existence for a lot of people.
And it's absolutely right. And look, mine is not the only leadership book on the market, so I'm not trying to suggest that like I've cornered the market in this. I just am speaking from experience. So a lot of books that you pick up are based in theory and what somebody else said some other place. Nope, this is what I've learned the hard way, right? And so not every story in the book is complimentary to me. There are a number of boneheaded mistakes I've made, and I'm saying like, look, I touch the stove, it's hot. You don't have to touch it to find out it's hot. Take it from me. But to the extent that I can provide someone both with the space and the grace to be able to learn from my mistakes and to then to be able to apply them in their own situation, why not? Why make it so that that someone would go without? Because the other reality is, on the business side, we're talking about making sure people are ready, but on the ministry side, I've been assigned to, in our denomination, we're assigned to churches, and I've been to some places where I thought that I had arrived. Oh man, I thought that I had made it to the right place, and I got there, and there were shut off notices on my desk. So now, what are you supposed to do on your first Sunday when you feel good about, you've been assigned to this great place, and like you're dealing with a financial strain over here on the other side, and what do you do? And so, like, I'm also talking about and you need to reach out to the utility company and say, hey, I'm new, and can we look at some options around being able to repay this debt in a different way? Like, but no one talks about those things because like we want to make it seem like that everything is going to be perfect all the time. And that's just not what business is. That's not what ministry is. What about when the person cusses you out and makes you want to lose your religion? What do you do? What about when the time comes that the people are ready, that they reneged on their promise? What do you do? And like that is different from this is the philosophy that you must follow. And if you do these 3 points, you will be successful.
No,
That's not life.
that won't apply, right? Because you have to take that situation, just like so somebody cusses you out, you don't necessarily have to cuss them back out, but you do have to take the situation you have to get the situation under control. And that's something again where we could teach young people because they walk into situations in work where the managers shouldn't be managers. They need to understand that they don't have to put up with it, but they do need to put up with it in a way that they can respectfully to get it under control. And this is just something that's very encouraging to me because this is everything I believe and everything I've been trying to teach. And it's right here in your book. And I'm going to
Mhm.
get your book and read it. And I love it. And I love the idea of, I've never believed, I understand it's just the separation of church and state and the purpose for it, but I very much believe church needs to be a bigger part of our life. And I just say church. I could be mosque. It could
Yep.
be temple. But just metaphorically speaking, I use the word church. It needs to be a more significant part of our life. I think I think America for certain will be a better place. I think we identify red or blue, Catholic or Jewish. It's not that simple. There is no one standard. We all agree on a lot of things.
Right. And I think that unfortunately, the world in which we live at this time is so partisan and is so hyper radicalized that if you disagree with me, that means that you are my enemy.
Right.
And so I talk about that in the book too. We can disagree without being disagreeable. Right. So like there are a number of people who like, oh my goodness, I don't have anybody on my Facebook feed that did not vote the way I did. And like, okay, that's true for you. And like, but look, I'm still friends with people who didn't vote the way that I did, and that's okay. Now, look, we don't have to talk about that, but we can. But there are still other things like you have redeeming qualities beyond who you voted for, and there's enough about what we do and what we understand and what we believe together that I can still love you and you can still love me. We just disagree, but like, I don't have to be. You're not my enemy because you disagree. I don't need to want to take you out because you disagree. I want to be able to live a life that makes you think twice about whether or not that choice was the right one. And that's it, right? Because I might be the only Bible that some people read. And so I want to be able to live my life in a way that would make people think, well, what does he have that, and because I want that. Okay. But look, there are more that we have in common than just who was at the top of our ticket. And there is more than what we have in common about what we, who we voted for, or what we believe, or where we chose to spend our money, or what our favorite restaurant was, or what our favorite basketball team is. Okay, like life goes on, and I can respect your choice. You can respect mine, and we can live to play another day. It is though when if you say something that I disagree with, that all of a sudden means that you now need to be taken out permanently. That is where we have an issue because none of the disagreements are fatal. None of our differences need to be permanent. They can just be that we disagree, and that's okay.
My friend recently posted on Facebook something unfavorable about the Pope. I disagreed. And he even said, if you don't like it, you can unfriend me. I'm not unfriending you. We've been friends for 40 years. I'm fine with your point. You have your opinion. And we'll discuss it in 5 days from now. And we probably won't agree, but I'm not going to start at this moment in time and go into a heated discussion. 5 days from now, I'll be, on the phone. I'll be, yeah, I saw your post. I never unfriended you. We'll have a discussion. That's okay. The Pope doesn't need me to defend him. He's got a billion followers. I can have my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have to cut the guy's head off for having his opinion. I love it. I'm just like, calm down, everybody. Calm down.
Yeah.
Let's.
But you're also espousing what love is, right?
That
Because
is love.
love covers a multitude of sins, and love doesn't keep records of wrongs, and love is a significant part of what it is, the fruit of the Spirit. And so, but the reality is that's not what people want to hear. That it must be that because you say and espouse this one thing, that you will not tolerate anything else. And look, and that's not to suggest that there aren't limits of grace or limits of people's kindness, but it is to be able to say that we can disagree without being disagreeable, that everything that you say doesn't have to mean that I cancel you in my life. We've been friends for this long, that we've had experiences that are much greater than this one. And those will be the things that we're going to take to our grave, not the things that, we're arguing over right now. Okay, now look, it could be a bridge too far for some people. And if that's where their boundary is, then that's okay. But that doesn't have to be your boundary. And if that's not your boundary, it's all right. Because we can disagree with people and still love them as people. Because we don't hate the sinner, we hate the sin. And so I can still love you even though I disagree with you. One of the most beautiful stories in the Bible to me is the story of the prodigal son. And when you think about the story from the perspective of, oh, the son came back home and the father was happy. But let's literally talk about it. The son had been eating the slop of the pigs. He had been rolling around there. That's where he was sleeping. So when the father got home and welcomed his son stank. Let's just be real about it. He came and the Bible says that he put a cloak around him and he wrapped him. He hadn't taken a shower. He hadn't bathed. He was stinky. But what does that mean? God takes us and our stinkiness, and he is still willing to wrap his cloak of love around us and say, here is my child. And if God can do that with me and my foul smell and foul life, if he can do that with me, who am I to say to you that he can't do that for you? And so if we would keep in mind the fact that what has been done for us can be done and is also being offered as a free gift to someone else, then, yeah, they may have said the thing that I didn't want to hear, but like we got more in common than we don't. And so like, let's just come together and rejoice and be happy, give the person a shower, but like, all those things. And like, let's make the most of it. And I think that that's a very simplistic example, but like that, to me, at the heart of it is
Great
what it's
example.
about.
Like you said, it's a beautiful story. And not only can God do that, not only we should be doing that to one another. We should be
Mhm.
embracing one another in the same way. And I love it. And this is, I can honestly say, I can sense why your church is so popular and your pastoring is so popular because I loved it today. Everything you said was basically pastoring. All I did was interject here and there going, oh my gosh, I agree. And
Well, thank you.
and it was beautiful. I just want to thank you, Pastor Kevin Taylor. If you want to tell us about your church, if you want to tell us about your book, I can't build on it anymore. I can't. And people are going to laugh at me if I said all you did was agree with it. All I did was agree with you. This is some of the messaging I've been trying to master, and you just did it all for me. And I'm
Well,
really trying to get to this point.
I appreciate it and I thank you. I am you can learn more about me and my church and all about work that I'm doing with Taylor Stewardship Institute by going to my website, which is REVKTTAYLOR, RevKTTaylor.com. And from there, you can subscribe to my newsletter. So I write leadership newsletters for LinkedIn. I also, it's America's 250th anniversary this year. And so I'm also writing a Substack newsletter that just talks about where we are as a country 250 years later and what our responsibility is as people to this nation of ours. And so I'm glad that you've agreed with much of what I said today, and I'm thankful for that. There are probably things as you get on my website that you won't agree with. And I'm okay with that, right? Because I'm putting it out there for people to be able to see. There's a section of my website that talks about the books that I've read this year and the books that I read last year. And I list those not for people to be able to say, oh, I agree with that one, I agree with that one, but to be able to understand that, like, even as I am wanting for people to read my book, I want you to know that I'm also reading other people's materials. And I'm learning a lot about different perspectives and different cultures simply by reading. And so what makes me, who I am is my faith in God. It is the experiences that I've had. But like, I'm really enjoying getting to know the way other authors present information, the context, the things that I have learned I would never have known had not I been willing to open a book. And so I invite your listeners to go on the journey with me, to check me out, to decide for themselves whether or not I'm somebody that they want to subscribe to or not, or somebody that they want to review my book or not, or visit my church or not. It's okay. But the idea is, I thank you, sir. Thank you, coach, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to be able to share. And I hope that, at least for one listener, they are willing to be a better husband, wife, son, daughter, pastor, leader, faith leader, whomever, as a result of this conversation.
I think it was great. I thank you, sir, for being so generous with your time. And I'm a follower now.
I
I'm a
appreciate that.
follower
Thank you.
now. I'm so encouraged to just get on that website and just start getting. And I want to see Substack newsletter too. I can't wait for that either. And I'm excited. This is really something. This is a whole learning experience for me. It's really been what I've been trying to message. I've been trying to convey for the longest time. The church needs to be more involved in our communities. There is no need for separation of churches. Corporate America needs more involved with churches and partner on a multitude of initiatives, which could be good, another whole hour of discussion, but we're not going to go there. But I am really looking forward to speaking to you again. Pastor Kevin Taylor, it's been incredible. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day. Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you.
You as well. Bye-bye.